We're live, baby. We're live.
Yo.
We're live. Look at this guy with his heat. What is that, Shaq?
Yeah. Bob Merciful present, man. What's the fun?
Cammy bringing the heat early.
Yes, sir.
As always, I'm going to tweet out real quick. So we're live now. Let's see. Let me pull up the stream on the YouTube page here. Just was recording. Yeah. All right. So we got a few people in, but we'll wait before we really get into anything too crazy. What a setup you have over there, man. Let me tell you. What's up, Canes fans? So I'm here with my good friend Cammy, who, if you guys have seen a couple weeks ago, maybe I don't know, maybe it's been like a month ago at this point, we introduced Cammy. He'll be on as a frequent guest of the podcast. Just finished podcast live stream, I should say. What's up, fellas? Appreciate everyone who's commenting early on here. Game 1 of the NBA Finals tonight, Heat Nuggets, but we'll get into that's secondary news to D Money, of course, dropping his new edition of the bank, which supersedes whatever happens tonight in the NBA Finals, right? So we'll get into a little bit of that. I know Brad Tejeda is going to be joining us as well, and Brad will lead the way on a lot of the nitty gritty in terms of the who's visiting and who's hot on the recruiting trail. But I just recorded a podcast with D Money, so I have been let in on a lot of the insights, so to speak. And you guys will see that podcast going to be posted tomorrow morning. So, but again, it's on the website right now, the bank. But again, as always, open for questions on here. We have 25 people on, so we'll wait another minute or two before we get into, we'll get into what's happening on the bank that D Money just dropped. But Cammy, how are you feeling about this game 1 of the finals tonight?
You know what, man? Every single time they line up, they're not supposed to win, and they just do the exact opposite. They beat the Miami Heat. So it feels like game 1. They're coming out of a 7-game series where obviously they exhausted themselves, and obviously Denver's coming off of, I think, 9-day rest, and so I feel like everything's going towards Denver, which is exactly what the Miami Heat. It's the recipe which they've done this whole playoffs. I mean, going back to the first game of the playoffs, they beat Milwaukee the second round. They take the first 2 games in the third round in Boston, and then in New York they really played bully ball and lost against to your Knicks. They really only lost with Jimmy's injury, and I think they lost another one. But still, I mean, I think Jimmy Butler's going to have a 35-plus point game, which is a nice prop, by the way. Jimmy Butler, 35 points and a Miami Heat win. But I think Jimmy Butler's going to have an epic night for this Miami Heat team to win, because I feel like Caleb Martin is discovered at this point. He's probably a big part of Mike Malone's game plan right now. So I like Caleb Martin, but it's more about can Jimmy Butler put up one of those moments which we've seen him, and it's just a matter of that. I feel like if Jimmy can do that, they really need to win one in Denver, and hopefully it's tonight.
Man, it would be nice to see. It's crazy because, like you said, it never seems like they're supposed to win. Obviously, they aren't ever favored. ESPN gave them a 3% chance, but they find a way to win without as much talent as the other team. It would be nice to see one of these years Canes football do something similar to that, because, man, it seems like, you look at the recruiting class rankings, and they've been top 15, top 20 consistently for the last 15 years, even though they haven't been top 5, top 10 consistently. But it still should be more talent than what you're facing week in, week out in the ACC, other than the Clemsons and the Florida States, right? And then you do have some teams there that do recruit well, like a North Carolina. But it's going to be very interesting to see. Listen, we know that Mario Cristobal is known as a recruiter, guy who stacks his rosters. But can the additions of a Shannon Dawson on the offensive side of the ball and a Guidry on the defensive side of the ball, who Shannon Dawson coming from Houston, right? Houston has recruited well, but they aren't a team that recruits incredible talent every year, right? Like 5-star talent or anything like that. They were able to get more done with less. And then Guidry, with his track record, obviously coming from Marshall and the other schools before that, not being at the biggest schools, but getting a ton of production out of what he had. It would be nice to finally see that happen around here.
100%. And I feel like these hires are more gritty type of earned hires rather than just having money and being ready to throw it at the best available candidate, which I feel like was Kevin Steele and Josh Gaddis last year. And I feel like this time around, he dug in. Not to say Mario didn't do his due diligence, but I feel like Mario was aiming at the best and looking at the best. Everything's the best, best recruits, the best coaches, the best everything. And it's just like, okay, wait, let's really just get it down to the X's and O's. Hopefully that's Dawson and Guidry. I actually have a question for you because and I know, I'm sure just after talking to D Money, I'm sure you'll be the perfect guy to answer this. It seemed to me like last year, Mario got in here and did what he thought was the first and most important thing right away, and that's recruit offensive line. Right, we got the jewels of the class in Okunlola and Maui Goa, and then even depth-wise with Kinsler, Inez Cooper. These guys like coming in.
It's crazy.
Really,
you sorry to cut you off. You mentioned Kinsler. That's a guy that, and we'll get into it now in a second, that D Money said they are very excited about him. He's slimmed down to 340. So, that's a big boy right there. But you saw what Inez Cooper did in his first year. Kinsler is a guy that they think can be athletically, he's elite, they're saying. And again, wasn't the biggest recruit, but as D Money mentioned in the podcast that people will hear tomorrow, standing next to Amawagoa, he looks bigger than him. And look, he still needs to drop to like a 325, but that's, sorry to break your train of thought there.
No, not at all. It just, well, what you're saying is just emphasizing what I'm saying is that he revamped the room. He took that one room and he said, this is going to be the most important position. I'm going to flip this room from a year from whatever until he got the job. And he did that. Right. And so now I look fast forward to this year and leading to my question to you is that it really looks like I'm just following the Twitter, following the visits, following all the tweets and all the cool emojis that people are putting out. But it really seems to me like he's doing the exact same thing on the other side of the ball with the defensive line. And it looks like it's going to match the same class, right? The jewels on the offensive line are now going to look like the 5 stars on the defensive line. And he's going after the best of the best, and he's loading up talent, whether it's the top of the top, like Dylan Stewart, #1 recruit in the country, whether it's an interior guy, Justin Scott, 5-star, or whether it's T.A. Cunningham on the edge. But there's a bunch of guys. The list goes on, but like, it really seems like that's what he's doing. And yeah, just talking to D Money, I mean, is that the theme around the recruiting of Miami?
100%. Justin Scott, is a guy that they feel very good about their chances with. A couple names. You mentioned T.A. Cunningham. He's going to be at Miami camp next week, and they're excited to get a chance to evaluate him, right? Because he's been multiple schools, right? And it's one of those things where obviously he's a highly rated recruit and they like him a lot, but always want to get a chance, if you can, to see them up close, because a lot of these other local guys they've seen up close, or they have enough information on some of the other guys they're recruiting. But a name that I wanted to talk about was Wyatt Gilmore from Minneapolis. He's scheduling an official visit this weekend, and Miami has a chance to make a big move. They want him badly. They would take his commitment without a doubt. So he's someone to definitely keep an eye on the defensive line, on top of these other guys that we're mentioning. So on the offensive line side, right, very similar to how we've seen with the Kinslers of the world, the Inez Coopers, Frankie Tinalau, a guy who's going to be on campus not this semester, but next semester, and he'll be here for fall camp. Guys who have these bodies and projectable frames, right? On the defensive line, they're trying to do, something very similar there, where you have a guy like a Gilmore who's 6'4", 240, edge guy, has some athletic ability, doesn't have isn't the 5-star recruit, but is probably the best player in the state of Minnesota, right? And a top 20 nationally rated edge prospect. But again, you're looking at a guy who's 6'4", 240 already, and has the frame to put some really, really good weight on and keep that athleticism. That's what you're looking for on top of the 5-star, no doubt, stud recruits, and then the local guys like a Ruben Bain that you just are going to be studs from day one.
It does, and I'm really glad you just mentioned Ruben Bain for a second and the local guys, because it really feels like, I'm not saying I'm a recruiting guru. I don't really know too much about the guys we have committed right now, but it really does feel like they've identified, maybe 3-star or lower guys that maybe aren't really identified at this point in the recruiting cycle. And they've locked in local guys. And it really feels like, even with last class with Ruben Bain and, going and getting these two, the two brothers from American Heritage at corner of the Brown brothers, right? So it really feels like he's, I always say this is, when I'd rather take a 3-star local guy from Miami than a 4-star out of state. And I know it sounds kind of whack because we all love the stars, but like, I know I'd rather bet on the South Florida guy. It feels like they've identified a few of those guys already. We got Brad in here. So
we got Brad in here now too. Brad, appreciate you coming on, man.
Fellas, what's going on? Y'all can hear me?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
All right, cool. Appreciate it. Yeah, no, I'm here at a local bar here in Gainesville, about to watch this Heat game. So.
No, I appreciate you coming, man. If you got, whenever you got to hop off, don't worry about it. Just wanted to, get you on here for a little bit. D Money just dropped. We're talking about the bank. I don't know if D Money. I don't know if you've seen the one that he recently put out, like in the last half hour or so. But a lot of the stuff on there, I'm sure you are already well versed on. One of the big updates that I'm very interested in is we knew that after Judd Anderson committed the QB position that they would probably continue to find another guy, but it looks like Colin Hurley might be the guy that they're continuing to pursue. And everyone knows he's the LSU commitment, has ties to Miami. He's a Jacksonville kid, but grew up a lot of his childhood down here in Miami. I know the family still comes down pretty frequently. So that's a very, very interesting thing to monitor, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely, bro. Me, Colin, and Charlie, Colin's dad, we go back kind of to where when Colin was in 8th grade, it was when I kind of first started the relationship with the Hurley family, and built a really good relationship with them, and just knowing who they are as people, kind of just seeing Colin mature and grow up to who he is, man. This is a young man that he has been invested into being an alpha wherever he went since he was like 5 or 6 years old. This family has polished and groomed him to be the guy that he is. And regardless if he's at LSU or another program, the dude's going to be a game changer on and off the football field. But, talking to his dad, they are aware that LSU is looking at other quarterbacks, and they're also aware that other big-time programs like Miami and a few other programs are reaching out to Colin to try to get him to at least maybe look at their program. But he will be at LSU the next few weekends to kind of close and solidify a lot of the rest of the recruits for LSU. So, you can take that how you want it, but at the same time, it doesn't seem like they're fully, locked in with just LSU. So I think at the end of the day, knowing how the staff is, they're going to continue to recruit, big time guys like Colin. So we'll see what happens. But I do like Wyatt Gilmore. I do like Wyatt Gilmore. You talking about the list on the bank with D Money. Wyatt Gilmore was one of those names. I'm very interested to see what someone like him brings to the table. He'll be visiting Miami this weekend, starting tomorrow, I believe. So that's a big name to look out for, in my opinion.
We were just also talking about some of the other stuff from the bank, and we were just talking about some of these guys who aren't the biggest recruits, but are already kind of making an impact, an impression on the staff. Marcelius Pulliam, out of Georgia at the linebacker position, 6'3", 215, and as D Money said, he's outrunning guys at the linebacker position that you would consider the fast guys at linebacker. So that's another name to watch as we continue to look at these. I keep going to the Kinslers of the world, the Inez Coopers of the world, who weren't 5-star recruits but have these body types that you get excited about for how they're going to develop under Mario and the staff.
No, facts for sure.
I got
Go
one
ahead.
question. I don't know if you know anything. I just kind of lurk here, and I just remember watching Cyrus Moss and just obsessing over his highlight tapes. I believe out of Vegas or California, but California.
Vegas, yeah.
Oh, Vegas. It is Vegas. I just never hear about him. Is there anything on him? He's just kind of still
JT
developing.
liked him a lot. Yeah, JT said some good things about him in spring, and he had a really good spring game. Had he had 2 or 3 really impactful plays. I mean, he's a chess piece, man. I mean, he can rush off the edge, but if I remember correctly, Brad, correct me if I'm wrong, he had a nice play out in space on a screen play as well during the spring game.
Yeah, he's been having some flashes. He's one of those guys that I think he's going to be a chess piece in the defense for Lance Guidry at times, depending on what type of defensive front you put in. And great thing for us is we have a lot of guys that are going to be able to rotate and cause havoc at different spots of the defense. And I think someone like him, someone like a Bobby Washington, a Ruben Bain, and also a Ahmad Moten, just to name some of the younger guys, I think are really going to have a lot to say, with the Akeem Mesidors, the Leonard Taylors of the world. I think, like you mentioned, Jason Taylor having, a lot of, one-on-one time with a guy like Cyrus Moss, being able to kind of see the traits that he had within himself with someone like Cyrus. I think he's going to take that under his wing. I think someone like him and Nigel Kelly are key to have big years this year.
Taking a look at a couple. Oh, go ahead, Cammy. Sorry.
No, so just to add, the way I see it is he's really molded like Gregory Rousseau. I don't know if you guys see that kind of. I mean, he's a freak, kind of lanky guy, and I really feel like
Rousseau. Listen, Rousseau. The difference was that he was right off the bat. The second that he stepped onto campus was dominant and looked like a first round top 10 pick. And I think it's taken Cyrus a little longer to kind of develop that, but again, you can't expect everyone to be the best player on the field right off the bat, especially in the offensive and defensive line. Taking a look at a couple of these questions here, Terry Roberts, someone fresh 3542 asked, Roberts left the cornerback from Iowa. Yes, as that was announced a little while ago, also that he re-entered the portal. It looked like he was going to be more of a special teams player here, and I think he saw the writing on the wall, and I think Miami was probably honest with him too. And listen, you see them bring in a couple other corners after spring and a Jadis Richard and a Jaden Davis. You have to wonder where your playing time is coming when you have other impactful players as a Damari Brown coming in. You already know Devontae Brown's going to have a big role. So I think that's what happened there.
Corey.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think the staff was pretty well aware. You looked at the cornerback position in the transfer portal in the last couple of months. All the guys we brought in, I think they were trying to create competition and also, push some guys out, whether it's through a competition level or just, maybe not the right fit. But even another guy like Demetrius Freeney, who's visiting Miami, I think tomorrow, JUCO cornerback, got great length. I think he's like 6'3", 6'4". He's already got, some type of relationship with a guy in Coach Adai, where I think Coach Adai and his coach, went to college together at some point or were roommates. So there is a relationship there. And, with the cornerback leaving, you still need another guy to maybe fill in that spot because you can't have enough cornerbacks, in my opinion.
Yeah, D Money had a million updates on corners in this edition of the bank. We won't get into all of them now, but he had a bunch of updates there. We have a couple people asking about Dejon Terry from Tennessee. He wasn't a guy that D Money mentioned. I know he has very updated info. I don't know what the reason for that is for, but I don't know if you've heard anything else, Brad, on him.
Nah, to be honest with you, I haven't heard any really communication on him. I know he's taking.
Yeah, I don't.
Listen.
Listen. Normally, if there's a guy out there that they haven't gotten in contact with, it's probably because they just aren't that interested, or there's. I'm not going to say that, but there's a reason for it, right? So, unless something changes, I don't think he's a guy they're on right now. Let's take a look at some of the other stuff. So some interesting notes here that that D Money dropped in the bank. Non-recruiting notes that Mark Fletcher has stood out early in the workouts. On top of Tommy Kinsler and Marcellus Pullen that we've already mentioned, Mark Fletcher has come in and looks the part, and his attitude, his mentality has been very, very positive right off the bat. He looks like a guy who's going to be a serious impact player at the running back spot. We don't know what Trevante Citizen's status is right now. Obviously, Don Chaney looks like has a real chance to be a highly impactful player this year, as we saw flashes in the spring game and Coach Cristobal talking about. But Mark Fletcher, man, what are your guys' expectations on him?
I think Mark Fletcher, for me though, I love the talent, but why I feel like we kind of sleep a little bit on all the running backs in front of him. I like Mark Walton.
Parrish, I didn't even mention Parrish.
So for me, Parrish was the heart and soul of our team last year. I know he sucked, but he was the heart and soul of our offense. Every time he touched the ball, something good happened. I don't really care what you think of him as a football player. I think he's awesome, but every single time he got the ball, something good happened. And so I feel like him healthy, hopefully Don Chaney healthy, hopefully Trevante Citizen can even just come back and be somewhat of a role player. I don't know if that leaves room for Mark Walton, and I don't know that's a bad thing either. But I do think Mark Walton, it's to me, I know I'm just sitting here being the stupid fan. I don't know anything. I know you, obviously, everything that you know with him just impressing in camp is all the news coming out saying he's.
I just think he's got the body type to be able to be someone right off the bat at the running back position is something that you see guys can be impactful early. And I think he fits the bill there.
And he's really only the short yardage back, the only type of guy like that they have.
Well, Chaney can be that too. I think Chaney can get the tough yards too, but it
is good to have a plethora of backs though. That will say, because we know how the injuries stack up, and
then you have the kid coming from Nebraska, AJ Allen.
I watched film on that. I mean, I'm sure we all did, but wow, that guy looks like a playmaker. I just want the ball in his hands. That guy looks really good. I mean, I don't know how it's going to shake out. I know he got hurt, but I mean, yeah. So add him into the mix. It's like we got a lot of options at running back. How does it shake out? I don't know, but I really like however it's going to go.
Brad, what do you think about Fletcher?
Yeah, I mean, Mark Fletcher's always been a guy that I've always been high on, in my opinion. As soon as we landed him, this is a guy that is coming from a premier program in South Florida. So you already know he's playing against some of the best competition day in and day out. So, a competition level standpoint, it's not going to be an issue. And then on top of that, this is a running back, that was wanted by Ohio State, wanted by Florida, wanted by a lot of the big programs. And we were able to pull someone of that caliber, without having a good season, in my opinion, and then having a bad season and still being able to keep him, right? But then on top of that, you talk about his measurables. He's going to bring, from a measurable standpoint, something that nobody in the running back room has. And I think regardless if you're a running back or a receiver or a linebacker, what you're seeing with Mario Cristobal and the staff is they have no problem bringing in attrition, right? They're gonna bring in as much bodies as possible, and quality bodies at that, to create as much competition as possible. And when you look at last year, especially, I know Cammy just talked about Henry Parrish and the year he had last year. In my opinion, Henry Parrish was probably one of the most consistent guys on our team last year. And we didn't really have that many people healthy. Our offensive line was atrocious. And someone like Henry Parrish was being put in situations that, honestly, he was already losing before the ball even got snapped. And I think with this new offensive scheme that we're running, it's only going to benefit someone like Henry Parrish. But the great thing is, when you bring in someone like Mark Fletcher, when you get to bring in a transfer like a Jay Allen who's coming here with something to prove and not just sit on the bench, it allows you to where you don't have to rely on a Don Chaney who's never been healthy. It allows you to not have to rely on a Henry Parrish, who we all know isn't, an every down running back, but unfortunately for us last year, he had to be that. So you have to be able to account for injuries, especially after the season we had last year, and you're seeing that done.
We have a question here from 352 MLW. Do you guys trust Zion to come back fully healthy? We need him, and hopefully we can let Jalen Rivers, battle for right tackle or right guard. I'm just gonna say right now, it's not that I don't trust Zion. We haven't seen him. I don't think we can count on it, right? And I don't think the staff is necessarily counting on it, which is part of the reason why they threw Jalen Rivers out there at left tackle, because they're probably expecting him to have to play that at some point this year.
I just want to say that I'm all for getting the guys that look small and are playing the most important position when it comes to size, and getting the big guys and the new guys in. So if that means he's looking at his projects.
Well, and I'll say, and I will say this too, and I don't mean to rain on anyone's parade here, but I think it should be evident and obvious. I think a lot of Canes fans see the mock drafts and they see Zion and they get excited, and he has had some really good moments at Miami. He was progressing to a point where he could have been drafted pretty highly. But a lot of the mock drafts you see early on and all that aren't the most reliable thing in the world, right? So what you said was right. From a lot of people I talked to in the NFL, people didn't see him as a future franchise left tackle, right? Could he play some right tackle? Could he potentially play some guard if he put some weight on, right? But he had a long ways to go still. So to me, you made a good point there. You're going to have a lot of different bigger body types across the board. Now, again, Zion is a guy who's had some really good snaps at Miami, has had some really good film at Miami, and would be an important player in the rotation for this team. But I just don't know if they're counting on him right now. Brad, I don't know if you have anything else to add there.
No, I just think from a recruiting standpoint, and then also just looking at, the questioning of someone like Zion Nelson, that left tackle spot is obviously a premier position every year in college football. And when you have coaches like Mirabal and Cristobal, the offensive line is their baby, right? They're going to make sure that that's their number one priority. They made that, a key when they first got here. And you're seeing that from a recruiting standpoint. And now in the transfer portal, they had no problem bringing in guys, right? But for the most part, the guys that they're bringing in are interior offensive linemen. So it doesn't really address that tackle position that we're all really concerned about, right? But I think what you're seeing is they have a lot of trust in some of the guys that are currently already on the team that may be labeled as interior offensive linemen, but have the diversity and skills to, play that outside. Because as we know, Mirabal likes to cross-train offensive linemen, right? And if that left tackle position was a big concern, especially if we're not sure about Zion, if Zion wasn't as healthy as we maybe think as fans, if it was that big of a deal, in my opinion, I think we would have made the tackle position a lot more of a priority in the transfer portal. And
in transfer portal, yep.
And you didn't really see that, right? So, I think this staff did a really good job at prioritizing what positions we needed in the transfer portal, but executed it, whether it was at the beginning, first wave of the transfer portal or later at the end. And the fact that even at the beginning and even at the end, we didn't really necessarily go after that many tackle targets, it kind of told me that, they feel comfortable where Zion's at as far as a progress standpoint, and also who we may have behind him.
Brad, we got D Money on now too. D, welcome. We've been talking a little bit about the bank and some of the updates you provided. So I don't know if you want to just kind of give your biggest thoughts that you took from your update.
Yeah, what's up, everybody? I got my son Elias here. Say hi. Eating some watermelon. Getting ready for the Heat game. Got my Jimmy Butler shirt. See that right there? It's you're seeing the old Jimmy Buffett album cover They redid it, made the shirt. My boy StrucyShirts.myshopify.com. I'll put the link in the comments right now. You can get get all kinds of heat-related gear. Also, you got the Canes Inside My Shopify for the Canes Inside gear. I got to plug my own stuff too. And like and subscribe. I know Peter's not saying it like he should be. Cammy, make sure you get on this guy to say like and subscribe.
I will.
Be a professional out here. This guy's out here losing his mind. You got to remember, like and subscribe every other sentence. So anyways, dropped a huge episode of The Bank. We recorded for the podcast, which will be out tomorrow morning, Friday, if you're watching it for the first time, and wrote something up for the site. But a lot of Canes updates. We got a big weekend this weekend. You got Jure Tank Hawkins from IMG on campus, wide receiver. Drelin Miller from Port Arthur, Texas, on campus, a wide receiver. You have Ariz, let me make sure I got the name right, tight end out of Georgia, basketball player. Amir Jackson, who just visited unofficially and did a workout on campus, tore it up. Eddie Tork trying to get on campus. Wyatt Gilmore from Minneapolis, Minnesota, defensive end. Trey Hendrickson comps. He's on campus. Just a lot of talented dudes here on campus ready to play. Linebacker James Nesta from Charlotte. Miami loves him. He's here. And I'm sure I'm missing some people. Brad might fill me in, but Miami's working hard. A lot of positions this weekend. This June month's going to be the biggest month ever. So any recruiting questions you guys got in the comments, throw them on.
A bunch of people were asking about the Tennessee D tackle. What's his name?
Yeah, Dejon
Terry. And
it could, I should have gotten the scoop on him. I didn't. I know Miami's wanted a big D tackle. I heard they liked him, but I didn't get I haven't confirmed that. So
okay.
I'll follow
I basically said the opposite. I said you didn't say anything about him, so I didn't know if it was a guy. But Brad also said that he hadn't heard anything on him, so I don't know if they're just playing that one under wraps.
I'll find out right now. Give me a second.
D Money Schefter. We're waiting for the update live on the show. Wyatt Gilmore.
We'll get to that when we can. But I don't know. I don't know on him. I know we wanted a big defensive tackle. We really wanted that Rogers kid from Kentucky, Taiwan Malone. I mean, obviously when he jumped in the portal, everybody assumed he was going to Miami, including Miami. So that one was a loss. Ended up regrouping, getting Anthony Campbell, who was on the podcast and was awesome. But that wouldn't surprise me because you can still see defensive tackles move out at Miami if another one comes in. But they're constantly looking to upgrade. It wouldn't surprise me at all because Miami wants defensive tackles. Still, they're not going to stop. It's not like they need a defensive tackle now, but they'll keep looking.
D, someone asked here, and it's something that you mentioned in the bank. Someone here is asking 352 MLW is asking to put some water on the JoJo Trader situation with the FSU crystal ball.
Yeah, I heard they looked into that, and there was nothing to it. It's just a guy throwing out a prediction, trying to get some hype. That doesn't mean that, Trader doesn't like FSU. He does. But it's not like he gave a silent or something or did something to get those crystal balls flipping. That's just, this guy just needed content for an article and put it out. FSU's in it for Trader. We're in it for Trader. We want it bad. I like our chances as the season goes. You got to win. You got to get momentum, all the things you got to do. But Miami wants him, and they're recruiting him, and they're going to have a great chance. Ocala Kane wants to know about Terry Roberts, why he jumped in the portal. So he came in. Miami really needed corners. If you listen to this podcast, we've been talking about it for months. Pete knows. We really needed corners. So got Roberts in, saw him in spring. I'm getting some echoes. So put yourself on mute, one of you guys. So we saw him in spring. Didn't love what we saw as far as on the defensive side of the ball. So we said, all right, this guy could be a great special teams player for us because he was a great special teams player at Iowa, but we still needed more corners. So we went out and added Jaden Davis from Oklahoma, as you saw, added Jadis Richard from Vanderbilt. Now we're looking at the junior college cornerback.
Demetrius Freeney.
Yeah, Demetrius Freeney, who would play right away. So Miami's still shopping for corners after seeing Terry Roberts in spring. Do the math on that. I think they would have looked to keep him as far as his special teams value, but I don't think this is something that Miami is sweating over as far as the cornerback position. They think they've added guys that are better at corner. That's pretty much the deal there. But as far as the kid I just mentioned, Freeney, watch that name. They love him. The only reason he was at JUCO was because he was a quarterback in high school. So he had lower level quarterback offers, didn't like what he had at quarterback, then went to JUCO and became a corner, 6'1", 10,900, physical tools all day. Now he's getting offers. So sometimes junior college kids are there because they have some bad character stuff or they have bad grades or both. That's not this kid. I heard he's an awesome kid, great grades. Again, he was just a quarterback, now playing corner. So even though he's raw right now, it might not be an instant impact guy like your usual JUCO type dudes. The upside is huge because of the size, the speed, the quarterback instincts, and all those things. 352 MLW wants to know Tejeda Young from FAU. I like Tejeda Young going back to high school.
Tejeda.
Sorry, man. It's the Hispanic coming out. I liked him in high school. I wrote him up on the site back, 4 years ago whenever he came out. I think he's from Palm Beach.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I like the kid as far as a player. I think Big Nickel, the name I'd watch for a Big Nickel might be Jadis Richard. He can play the outside. He has a speed for it, but he can also be your big nickel. He's definitely big enough. He's almost 200 pounds. So that's a name to watch a big nickel. I know they would have loved to have Andre Sam, but Tulane came in and made too much noise about tampering. So that one went out the window. I got some love for the 561 here, Palm Beach. Palm Beach has been a little dry lately. I got to be honest. Although I'll say this. Listen, I'll say this. Quarterback-wise, two of the best quarterbacks in college football right now. Michael Pratt from Boca. I know he went to Deerfield Beach ultimately, but he's a Boca kid. And Jordan Travis from Benjamin. So two Palm Beach kids, probably two of the best quarterbacks, top 10, maybe top 5 quarterbacks in college football right now. So Palm Beach is coming through with the quarterbacks. Some of the other positions not as hot as they've been in the past, but there's always talent in Palm Beach. You got to recognize. First rounders. They're pretty much having first rounders every other year. I think they had Kair Elam a couple of years ago. I'd have to go through the list, but they produce first rounders. They produce NFL players, no doubt.
The Tyler Harrell, are you hopeful that he's going to be healthy based on what you've heard?
Yeah, I heard he's running like a deer right now. Because right now they're doing workouts, so all you know is what they're doing as far as running around. They're not playing football with helmets on,
right?
But they said that this guy's as fast as they've ever seen. I mean, straight up. And this is not, you aren't rookies to the game. We talk about Cristobal. He's been in Alabama. They say fastest guy's ever seen, along with Chris Johnson, who Miami also has now on campus. So those are two elite speedsters. They got track times to back it up. 30 yards a catch for Tyler Harrell at Louisville. That speed is real. It's verified. And health was always the concern with that foot. But you could, based on what they're seeing with their eyes, forget the medical part of it, just their eyes, the guy's flying. So shouldn't be a problem, at least not for now.
That would be such a huge pickup. I think everyone's they were excited about the get, but you're holding your breath and you're wondering how healthy is he going to be. If you get him close to 100%, then you have a steal right there with him.
Yeah, no question about it. And really a need position. Where was the speed at Miami last year? I'd say who's the fastest player? Brashard Smith? I guess Rooster.
Rooster
couldn't hold on to the ball.
No, listen, it may have been DJ Ivy. I don't know.
Malik Curtis.
Malik Curtis, right? Okay.
Yeah,
but
one of those guys.
As far as in terms of making plays, they had no speed. As far as the big time, Rooster was supposed to be that guy, but he couldn't hold on to the ball. So if you can't hold on to the ball, it's not worth it. And then Brashard was okay. The offense, I think, limited him a little bit. He looked better with the other offense. So
I think Brashard's quicker than fast, though.
Yeah, and you still have him. So you keep him, but then you add Chris Johnson, who's 10'2", 24, 20.4. I mean, these are faster than pretty much anybody in the NFL, except for Tyreek Hill. That's faster than Chris Johnson. That's faster than CJ Spiller was. That's faster than, mean, you name Reggie Bush. I mean, you name the fast running back. He's faster than all those guys. Hester. This guy's track times are unmatched. Harrell, same thing. I heard he ran 4.2. He was on the Bruce Feldman Freaks list, 30 yards a catch. So there's different level speed. Plus you get Ray Joseph, who's a playmaker. Maybe not the sprinter that those guys are, but a playmaker. And Robbie Washington, who can make plays. So the speed level's been increased tremendously, which makes a big difference.
I think also D, what makes a big difference, especially the two guys you were talking about, Chris Johnson and Tyler Harrell, right? Like in years prior, these were the type of guys, whether it was a high caliber guy coming out of high school or transfer portal guys, these were guys that we were like heavily dependent on to be that guy in order for our offense or defense to be successful, right? Where now you're starting to see this team start to build some quality depth within, whether it's from a recruiting standpoint, bring guys in the portal, or just keeping the quality guys on this team and them actually developing and progressing, right? So now these guys like a Tyler Harrell and a Chris Johnson, these attributes that we're talking about, they're great, but it's not something that we have to rely on, right? Like Tyler Harrell is a situational wide receiver in this offense, right? We're going to be using different wide receivers for different situations, right? Same thing with Chris Johnson Jr. He brings an element to the running back room that no one else in the room does, right? But it's not something that we're happen to rely on, you know, and that's the great thing about it. These guys are situational players, and the key is going to be we're going to have to execute and put these guys in the right spot at the right time to be able to execute at the end of the day. And that's what you got to hope with Shannon Dawson in this offense, because we all know he likes to create big plays, and those guys definitely do it.
Take a few more questions.
And no question about that, Brad. And in terms of the depth you're talking about, Shamar Kirk, the JUCO wide receiver, he's also on campus. And with these guys, sometimes it's like you got to see them because they recruit him late. They didn't really get eyeballs on him. It's not like they went out and scouted him in person because they saw him late as a JUCO. So there's always some uncertainty when you get these guys on campus. You're like praying, like, do we get a lemon here? And I heard so far so good with Kirk. He looks the part, big. He's running well. He looks good. Again, early, no pads, all that. But sometimes these guys get on campus when they haven't been scouted thoroughly. Maybe they're a late take. Maybe they're from JUCO or something. And they get on campus and you're like, this is the guy. Like I remember Willie Dixon, for some of the older guys back in the day. If you remember Willie Dixon, he was like a huge recruit that Butch got out of a small school in California, big time recruit receiver. And like the first practice, this guy was like, you could tell he was not the dude. That was back when you had, you know, the Santana Mosses, Reggie Waynes, Andre Johnsons. You knew what it looked like. And right away, it was like, this guy is not gonna make it at Miami. So sometimes that happens. And I heard with Kirk, they saw him and they said, all right, so far so good. You know, this is what we thought we were getting. Now let's put the pads on, let him and Jacoby George compete for that flanker spot.
Yeah.
Another question here about Zion.
Go ahead,
No,
Pete.
go ahead, Brad. Sorry.
No, I was gonna say when I talked to Kirk, also he talked about, you know, him coming from a JUCO program. One thing that he was gonna emphasize and be able to do is when he got to Miami, you know, he's not much of a sociable guy, right? So he's not gonna be one of those guys you hear about that he's like, you know, with all the guys, you know, in the pictures and whatnot. He's going to be grinding like every single day. And what he's going to be looking at and utilizing is all the equipment and all the nutrition that Miami's going to be offering him to be able to take him to the next level. Similar to how, you know, when you talk to a guy like Colby Young, his transition from JUCO to Miami that first year, what really helped him the most was that actual, you know, Power 5 weight room, the nutrition value of where, you know, he wasn't eating Uncrustables every night or ramen noodles. You know, he was getting the right protein and nutrition inside of him along with the right work ethic in order to get him to the next level, because the drive and the mentality and the athleticism is there, right? Talent standpoint. Just like Coach Kevin Beard says, if we're recruiting you and looking at you, we already know you have the talent, but what else do you bring to the table off the field, right? And that's what's so great about a kid like Shamar Kirk. You know, he's 22 years old. He's coming to Miami with one mindset and one goal only, and that's to get to the next level. He knows where he's at from an age and from just a timing standpoint. He wants to come in here and contribute to this program, but at the same time, he's not going to settle, you know, and he's a guy that's going to bring a lot to the table, and he's going to push the room.
No question. And character is huge at receiver. I've been saying it forever. That's a position where you got to work in the dark, you know, so that work ethic goes a long way. Look at the guys that succeed. It's not the biggest guys, the fastest guys. It's different body types, different speeds, but always a great work ethic and working on the craft, because it's a craftsman's position. And that's something Miami struggled with at that position really the last decade. And the guys that have made it, your Hearns, your Dorsets, your Barrios, your Hankersons, you name it, KJ Osborne, they're all workers, man. There's no secret. Kobe Young or Strepo look like workers. Shamar Kirk can bring that attitude to the room. Push a guy like Jacoby George with a ton of talent. That's great. Brad, I gotta ask you, I know you're at a bar and you got the camera off. I'm wondering what kind of bar it is, man, because you're not showing your face. It must be a strange establishment, man. You're in hiding.
He's in Gainesville, man. What do you expect?
Oh, I see. Oh, there it is. Okay, all right. You got the uniform on. There we go. Getting ready for the Heat game. Shout out to the guy right next to you with the hat. All right.
Take a couple more questions here before we get off before game time. We've been asked about Zion now a couple times. I don't think the staff's necessarily counting on him, but he would be a luxury for the offensive line.
I just think they don't. When he's there, he's there. If I had to guess, I think he'll be there. But I haven't heard someone tell me he's there, so that's why I haven't said he's there. But if you haven't made my guess, like it's not like someone's told me like he's done. He's cooked. I haven't heard that or anything. Right. It's not like with like an Amon Richards or someone where people told you like, hey man, this is a problem.
Yeah. So actually, this is a good question I wanted to bring up with y'all too. We're talking about offensive line and problems that could occur or not occur. A good problem to have, right? And when you look at last year's class, as far as the offensive line recruiting standpoint, it was very offensive line heavy from a star standpoint, talent standpoint. And we, from the majority time, we had a good amount of guys that we ended up landing, right? We didn't land a Peyton Kirkland or a Olaus Lennon. And then also having a guy committed like Connor Lew, who ended up flipping to Auburn at the end, really kind of bit us a little bit, from a standpoint where now you're seeing someone like Lou Cristobal come into the program. That could have been somewhere where a guy like Connor Lew could have kind of really cemented himself in, right? And when you look at this class, talking about the offensive line, there really isn't that many quality guys from a star standpoint that Miami is really going after besides Brandon Baker, right? Especially at tackles. And it doesn't look like Miami is in a good spot to land him. In my opinion, I think he's going to go to Oregon. But look at recently, a big-time offensive line target that we are going after. We've had really good relationships from the beginning and is now getting an offer from Alabama. How do you guys feel about Joseph Anada getting an offer from Alabama, a guy that Miami has put at the top of the list as far as from a recruiting standpoint on the offensive line? And we know how thin the offensive line is from a recruiting standpoint right now. You got to build quality depth because we know that guard position can get low very quickly. What's your thoughts on Alabama swooping in last minute? It kind of reminds me of an Olaus Lennon recruiting standpoint from last year.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Not as a big time dude. Great size at center, undersized tackle, but a big athletic center. Not surprised. I hope Miami stays in that. Obviously, an Alabama offer is going to open his eyes, but Miami's been there from the beginning, and it's not like Miami has a bad track record developing O-line themselves. It's good in terms of people recognizing his talent, but you never love it when Alabama goes after one of your O-linemen. So hopefully Miami can keep at it with him. They've been recruiting him hard for a long time and have been, they've been right on him as far as his talent, as this offer confirms. I got a comment from 352 MLW. He said, I thought my boy Brad was at Cafe Risque. I used to make that drive all the time, and I always see that sign. It's a Cafe Risque, free trucker showers. And sometimes I'd be dirty, man. I'd be sweaty, I'd be kind of stanky, and I see that sign. I'd think for a second, but I usually had my beautiful wife next to me, so I would never go to such an establishment. Cafe Risque. I'm surprised that place is still.
Oh my god!
For like human trafficking or something. That place looks pretty grimy.
Mikey Williams, OT.
Big guy. I haven't heard his name in a while. I don't know. I know we liked him at one point, but that's the name I heard at O-line. Dedrick Plass from Jacksonville, they love. Kevin Haywood from Pennsylvania, they love, but he's gonna be tough to get out of there. Midwest.
Zuri Madison as well, D Money. That's a name to watch. He's going to be visiting that last weekend for June, which is where most of our commits are going to be visiting. So that's a name to watch too. I know they've been eye on.
Yeah, I posted about him in the bank. They love his tape. He's not the guy that's going to impress you with his body and just his size, but the guy, I mean, he's not small, but he's not like, Samson or Francis where you just look at it and go, wow. But the guy's film is unbelievable. They like him a lot. Eddie Turk, who I mentioned in the bank, loved this guy from Chicago. Ignore the ranking. Watch the tape. This guy is someone they think is a star as far as athleticism and his ability, toughness, and all those kind of things. So those are some names at offensive line. Who else? Obviously, the kid from Alfawa from Washington. Miami loves him, and I think Miami's in a great position to get him. 6'2.5".
You got Nair Daniels as well, D Money. Visiting on the 9th.
Yeah, he's another big one. Oh, I got one. Jordan Seaton from IMG, originally from DC. Highly recruited kid. Miami likes him. Now he's at IMG. Miami's going to have a shot at him because any IMG kid is going to be visiting. It's going to be close proximity. We'll be visiting them. The teammates will talk and all that kind of stuff. So now that Seaton's at IMG, I think Miami's got a shot there, and they really like him.
Yeah, I'm here in Florida's pretty tough in the mix with that one too. And as we know, I'm trying to figure out what Jeremiah Smith is here in Gainesville, so I can kind of let him know, hey man, this ain't the place for you, brother. Just go ahead and slide back down south. Yeah, Gainesville isn't anything but a swamp, man. So just go ahead and slide back down to South Florida where you belong, brother.
No, that's a fact. Stephen Avella wants to know, how do I rank the big D tackles coming, or how do we rank the big D tackles coming this month? They're all pretty good. Stone's pretty damn good. Justin Scott's super talented. I like Aiden Breland. The quickness and twitch of him to me is different. Just the athleticism. That's kind of what plays. If you look at the NFL, nothing better. There's all kinds of great defensive tackles, but the guys that are really quick and explosive and cause havoc inside, your Aaron Donalds, your Chris Jones, again, different body types, but those guys I would say are athletes first, explosive first step before anything. So Breland to me is the most athletic of the D tackles. So to me, he's the one that, from what I could see, is the most impressive. But those guys are all studs. There's a lot of talent. Pretty much the best defensive tackles in the country are all going to be on campus this month. So what can we ask for?
Yeah, June 9th specifically, you got five-star at the defensive line position that are all going to be visiting at once. And like you mentioned, Aiden Breland and a couple other guys. You got Justin Scott, T.A. Cunningham, David Stone. I mean, the list goes on. Dylan Stewart, Colin Simmons. I think a lot of these guys are probably going to go SEC bound, in my opinion. But, the probability of landing, 30 to 40% of these guys, seems very likely. And we're not even talking about, some of the under-the-radar guys like a Marquise Lightfoot or a Wyatt Gilmore, who's going to be visiting this weekend as well, that I know the staff really likes. But, it seems very likely, D, that this staff could possibly get eight defensive linemen in this class.
Yeah, and you said 30%. It's funny that you said that because I heard the same thing. It's like, look, if we're in the mix for, a couple dozen superstar type talents, you got 30% of them. Those are impact guys in your program. Dylan Stewart, that's one name to watch as far as top of the board, and there's traction there. DC kid, city kid, there's no program that's got a hold on DC like that. So he's one I'd watch real close. Jason Taylor doing great work there. But Dylan Stewart, as far as the big names, he's the one that really catches my attention at this stage, both as a player and in terms of, Miami's interest in him. So I got to get the kids down.
Yeah, I was about to say, let's wrap it up here, fellas. We got the game about to start in a few, but Brad, appreciate you joining us. D Money, thank you. But Brad making it live from the Gainesville bar up there. So
for sure, bro. Y'all have a good night, and man, it's June 1st, man. It's big fish season, right? Big fish season. Grab the fishing rod, get your best bait. And last but not least, man, put on some loafers because we're gonna get the step in this month.
There it is. I know he wrote that one on the bar napkin. Go
best
Heat.
of luck to
Canes.
Bruce Brown, Miami Hurricane, Bruce Brown in this series.
Hey, I wish him a huge contract in the offseason after a nice Western Conference championship run, and the Heat are holding the trophy. So go Heat, go Canes.
Go Heat.
Take it easy, everybody.
Go Heat.
Fucking my Oh,